Hey everybody, welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, and I put together a little something that, well, probably somebody has already done, but, you know. Um, I got to building a couple new decks and looking through the cards I've been acquiring, and it's kind of, like, if you're like me and you don't have every single stupid card memorized, then it can be a little tedious to keep reading through them all. So I went to my deck editor, and I found a person that I leveled up but haven't really used a lot, and I used their extra deck slots. So Mr. Bandit, I used the extra deck slots I unlocked to kind of put together a list of more or less universal spells and traps. So these are like spells and traps that are a cut above some of the other ones and kind of work through any average deck. Like, they don't need to be a fire attribute or a fairy type, or it doesn't have to be I don't know, an Amazon thing, or wind up, or whatever you play. Like, these would be like cards that can run in pretty much any single deck. And yes, this is based off of what I have. Yes, I'm sure there are better ones. Yes, I'm sure this is stupid, but I'll give you guys the list I put together from the cards I have to hopefully help you guys out at some point. I know this is probably going to help me out at some point. First, I want to say that if you can see here, there's 8 cards in a row. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 rows. So that's 8 in a row, 22 rows, 116, 16, 176 in different cards. So instead of reading through all these every single time, I kind of went through a little bit, and I put one of each card that had a pretty positive, universal, neutral effect that could be played in pretty much any deck. And I kind of made a list of them in here, and I got to about 30 magic cards, or spell cards, or whatever it's called nowadays, and I got to about 30 trap cards, and this is what I put together. So I picked a lot of cards that don't have to be like certain levels or certain attributes, certain affiliations. So, like the Unchosen one, if your opponent controls 2 or more monsters, your opponent chooses one monster they control, you destroy one of the other monsters they control, and special summon a destroyed monster from the graveyard in attack position. You cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this card. So it's a pretty simple like card that would play in pretty much any deck. You take your opponent chooses one of his monsters, it dies, it comes back on your side of the field. You don't get the battle that turn, and more likely he's going to pick his weaker monster, but you contribute that monster to summon one of your own monsters and pass your turn. So it's pretty like a universal card that's going to work in pretty much any deck. If you play a little bit more old school and you don't have like a one of these here people that have like, you know, a famous Blue Eyes White Dragon deck that, you know, one turn summons everything. But then I went through and I picked up more. Here's some. I was a little iffy on this one because it's like a level 4 normal monster, but I figured that can be played in a ridiculous amount of decks, and it's an ultra rare for a reason. It's pretty good. It's a little bit more specific, but I still feel that it earned its spot here, so it gets to stay, in my opinion. Then one of my all-time favorite equipped cards, Fighting Spirit. This is a personal choice. I'm sure, once again, there are better ones, but I would run this in pretty much every deck that I don't have a definitive type or strategy for, because I just think it is just one of the greatest cards. If you get outnumbered, you get 300 per monster they have. If they get a stronger monster, you get a free turn to pretty much, you know, come up with a backup strategy, because you can take an attack and, you know, you keep your monster to, you know, swap it out to summon for later or something. So, I mean, this card is just like, to me, a pretty universal, great, especially early game card. Like, if you got 3 of these guys running in your deck, it's like, it's just in my opinion, it's something that's really great. It can stall you a little bit of time or give you that edge. And then you got Offering of the Doomed, which, great card, but I personally hate it. I would rather use a card like this and discard a card than skip my draw phase. Because if I discard a card, at least I know what I'm losing. If I skip my draw phase, you never know what you're going to lose. It is a good card, especially early on, but I mean, I would pick things like this or Raigeki Break first. But I mean, if you don't have access to this, then this is a good card, and it is universal, so it also made the cut. This card, same deal. I mean, it's a really good card, and it gives you the option, or instead of doing like Raigeki Break that just destroys any card, this does only monsters, but it does banish the card. So I mean, it gives you a little bit of a variety depending on what your deck strategy is. So it made the list. The giant, or Hey Trunade, I thought this was a giant Trunade or something. And maybe, I haven't been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! For a long time, huh? But anyways, so this is basically, if you go into a battle phase, and you throw this card up, it's going to eliminate all your worries of getting a trap sprung on you. I don't run this card, but it could be used, so it made the list. This guy, a lot like my Dark Core idea, you get rid of a spell or trap card, and you can destroy any card on the field. I mean, that's pretty good. The enemy controller, target a face-up monster, and you can change its battle position. That can save you a turn. Or you can tribute one monster on your side of the field and take control of your opponent's monster. So, let's say you have a Dark Magician, and your opponent has a Blue Eyes, and you have Fortune Lady in your hand. The 2400 6-star one. I can't remember her name, but she's one of my favorites. But 2400 6 stars, and it's in your hand, and you can't deal with that Blue Eyes, but you have this card. And you're like, oh, well, I can change it to defense mode, or you could sack your Dark Magician, take control of his Blue Eyes, sacrifice his Blue Eyes to summon your Fortune Lady, and problem solved. So this card is definitely, like, I run this in a lot. So like, if I was building like an old school Yu-Gi-Oh deck, like back in the day, I would be like 3 Fighting Spirits, 2 enemy controllers, because that's what the ban thing is. But I mean, these would be like cards that I would have if I was doing like a random kind of pickup game, and I wasn't like, try-harding. Now this card is a little bit different. I wasn't sure if it was going to make the list, but I decided that it has a good enough unique ability that there's nothing else really like it. So I guess I threw it in here because of that. For every monster you have, it decreases the attack of the monster it's equipped to. So if you need a monster on your side of the field to have decreased attack, that's great and all, but I would more or less use this against my opponent. So if I have, once again, we'll use the Dark Magician theory here. If I have 2 Dark Magicians on the field, or 1 Dark Magician on the field, and my opponent has a Blue Eyes, I can throw this guy out here, and then he's down to 2400, I got 2500, and he's dead. That's just how it is. So I thought this guy would make the list because it has a pretty unique ability. I kind of like it. We got the Lucky Iron Axe. It's a lot like, it's more like a personal preference. It's universal, can equip to anything. Adds 500 attack, and any time that, or when this, if this face-up card you control is destroyed by an opponent's effect and sent to the graveyard. So when this is discarded, you get to draw a card. So that's a good draw mechanic, fairly simple, This one, I'm on the fence about again. Very universal, very useful, great draw mechanic. But I mean, there's so many better cards out there if you give it enough time that I could see somebody getting rid of this. Actually, there's quite a few times that I throw this in the deck, and then by the end of the deck, whenever I'm slimming it down, like this one's one of the first ones to go. So it's like, oh, I like the idea, but when it comes down to it, there's so many things I'd rather have. So there's that. Spell Absorption, I was, once again, kind of iffy, but it's a good way to generate life points, and it, all it does is really take up a spell slot and a slot in your deck. So, I mean, it's not really bad, depending on what you're running. And then you got, like, Banner of Courage. During your battle phase, you get a 200 attack boost for each of your guys. That's kind of cool. Then we got the block attack and block defense, which are pretty self-explanatory. Great ways to manipulate the battlefield in your advantage during combat. So that's kind of cool. You can either save one of your guys, save your life points, or deal damage to an opponent using changing the what would we call it? Positions, battle status. I don't even know what you could really call it, but they made the list very OG, but very still could be useful. Then you got dispel and remove trap. Trap and spell removal. It's pretty much anything face up spell or face up trap. I don't think these work on face downs in this game. I don't know if they worked on face downs in the real game. I know when we used to play that, if I played dispel on a face down card, that was alright. And then, if it was a spell, it got destroyed. If it wasn't a spell, then, tough luck. So that's kind of how we ran that, but I don't really know how it is in, official roles. Then we got this guy. Inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent's life points and increase yours by 500. It's a one-time use, but I mean, when I was looking through the cards, I had choices of red medicine and blue medicine. Red medicine heals 500, blue medicine heals 400, and I'm sure there's other ones out there that are way better, what was the one? Poison the Old Man, I think. That does 700 damage and it does 1200 healing or something like that. You get to choose one. So I guess this one's a happy medium. I think if you need a quick pinch at life points, you might as well deal some damage to your opponent while you're at it, So it made the list out of all the different hilly things. This one, I'm not entirely sure what it means. During each of the standby phases, special summon a slime token. So it's a great way to generate fodder. You cannot summon that same turn, but you can still set. And then what does it mean by you can't summon? Can you not special summon? So I could throw a face down defense monster and have this running, but can I tribute summon or special summon? I don't completely know the mechanics of this, but having a small creature fodder maker is something that could be useful in a lot of situations. Secret of the Bandit. This card can only be activated during the main phase. 1. Select one face-up monster on the field. Each time the selected monster inflicts battle damage to your opponent, life points, they could discard a random card. So this one was, I mean, it could be a real lifesaver, but at the same time, it's a lot like the hammer guy here. I could see myself throwing it in a deck when I'm first creating it, but when I'm slimming it down, it would probably be one of the first ones to go. Neither player can destroy set spells or trap cards on the field until your opponent's next end phase. This could be really handy if you're afraid of getting something taken out, say you're getting attacked by, the one, the only, the Blue Eyes, and you throw out a Sakuratsu armor to instant kill it, and you're afraid that they're gonna do wiretap or something. You could throw this guy out, and then that's gonna protect you. So it could have its place. And then this guy is a lot like the Banner of Courage, but it does 300 to all defense position monsters. And I think that's constantly. I don't think that's just during your battle phase, because that would be a little bit asinine. But, you never know with Yu-Gi-Oh, man. Never know. You cannot activate set or use effects of any spell or trap card this turn. So this would be something else to throw during your battle phase, which means you could deal raw damage without the fear of getting Sakuratsu'd armored or magic cylindered or some crap. So that's a pretty cool card. Once again, probably a lot of better ones, but for early game and what I currently have, it's not too bad. Rocket Builder, this guy, you equip it to a dude. Dude can't be destroyed by battle, but anything he attacks, it takes off the opposing monster's attack. So you'll take okay, so let's once again, we'll say you're attacking a Blue Eyes and you have a Battle Ox, which is 1700 attack. You throw this thing on him, you're gonna take 1300 damage for doing the attack, but his Blue Eyes are gonna drop down to 1300 attack. So then next turn, you know, you're going to be able to take them out. You're safe. So I mean, it's a little bit of a sacrificial thing. But I seen this when I was reading through all the cards, and I was like, you know what? I might never use this, but this is probably something worth mentioning. Monster on your side of the field cannot be destroyed in battle if the monster's attack are equal. You know, take this however you like. You know, I don't know how to. I would never use this, but I think there are situations where it could come in handy. Card of the Soul. I don't even know what this is. Look at your deck, and if you do, you can add one monster from your deck to your hand. Who's some of the... Okay, that's what this card is. So if you have, like, I don't know, 3,500 life points left, and you play this card, you can get something that has, like, 1,800 attack, 1,700 defense, or any variation of 3,500. Could be handy. And is it special summon or to your hand? It's to your hand. But I mean, it's any level. You can do like a level 4, a level 3, a level 7, you know, whatever adds up. And it doesn't say normal monster? No, any monster. So I mean, it could be like a banging effect. So I mean, this card could be very useful. Here's another one that I'm not completely sure what it is. I know I chose it for a reason. Target 2 face-up attack position monster. Okay, that's this one. You control with the same attack this turn. And one of them can attack your opponent directly, and the other one cannot. So you have 2 battle boxes. Your opponent has 1,700 life left, and he has what Labyrinth Wall was a really famous defensive creature. So you're like, okay, well, I can't get through that with my piddly little battle box. So you know, I'll throw up this card, and then 1,700 directly. You win the game. It's done and over with. This card is a little bit, it's like a cheapo Monster Reborn. So, and it goes to your hand, and your opponent gets to choose. So your opponent chooses a card in your graveyard, it goes in your hand, a monster. This could be great if you only have one monster, or you only have good monsters. So, I mean, it could be useful. If you don't have any other way to get things out of the graveyard, and you keep it in mind of what you have in there, it could be pretty useful. But we're going to move on to traps, because we're already 17 minutes deep, and I didn't think it was going to take this long. So I put together a list of traps as well. This one's a little bit less, but once again, I'm not going to count them, but I think there was it was 18 rows of 8, so it was 144, so I think there was 149 trap cards, individuals. So these are the ones I picked out that I did this pretty quick in the last half an hour. So I didn't put a whole lot of time into it, but this is what I have that I think is universal and good. So we got this guy. Whenever a monster on the field activates its effect, you can make the activating player toss a coin and call it. And this works for you and your opponent. I can't see too many reasons why you'd do it to yourself, but it's possible. Now, there could be instances where it'd be good. If they call it right, send this card to the graveyard. If they call it wrong, negate the effect of the activation. And if you do, change control of the monster. Change that monster to their opponent. Change apart the card. You can only use the effect head judging once per turn. So if you got a dude on the other side, activates an effect, you play this card, he calls it right, this card goes to the graveyard, he calls it wrong, you get his monster. That's pretty cool. Raigeki Break, pretty self-explanatory, discard a card, destroy anything you want. These two are trap monsters, which I always kind of had a soft spot for these guys. I never actually ran a deck with them, but I always wanted to, so maybe someday I've been kind of spending a lot of my ticket things on these, to maybe someday build a deck, but well, I'm not holding my breath playing that long. Pretty much the trap monsters is, you get attacked, you can throw this guy in front of it, and it's either a meat shield or something with a little bit of attack. Like this guy's 1800, so it's reasonable. This is one that I keep cutting. I feel like I could have it in my deck, but I keep cutting it because it's not good enough. It's an ultra rare, and I even got the shiny one. I don't know if I got this on purpose or it was on accident, I'm not sure, but here it is. So, when an opponent monster that was tribute summoned declares an attack, destroy as many face-up attack position monsters they control as possible, and if you do, inflict 1000 damage to your opponent. The thought in my mind is this card is great, but then immediately after that thought, it's like everybody special summons almost freaking everything. Like, how much is actually tribute summoned anymore? So it's like it'd be kind of selective. Everything's either fusioned, XYZ, synchroed, or card affected in. So I mean, it looks cool, but it's not really that cool. Okay, so when your face-up monster is targeted for an attack, apply one. Okay, so this one basically sends the top card of the deck to the graveyard, and if it's a monster, the attack target gains the attack. So like the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, or you know what? I'm running out of I'm running out of breath. Okay, when your face-up monster is targeted for an attack, apply the following effect up to 3 times while you control a face-up attack target. Send the top card of your deck to the graveyard. So you can do this 3 times. And if it is a monster, the attack target gains attack equal to the attack of that monster sent to the graveyard. But if the attack target attack is higher than the attacking monster attack, destroy the attack target. So yeah, you guys can. I read it. You guys can interpret it. I'm running out of speaking power. So this is really cool. I put this in here. I guess you can't really say it's for any deck. It's got to be for a deck that's pretty much based off of a particular type, like Spellcaster or something. But it would work in anything like that. You can pretty much target one face-up monster on the field, yours or your opponent's field, and you can summon one monster from your hand or graveyard, special summon one monster from your hand or graveyard with the same original type as the monster, but with a different original name. So if you have a Fortune Lady in the graveyard and your opponent has a Dark Magician on the field, you can use this card and pull your Fortune Lady from the graveyard and special summon it to the field. That's pretty much, or I mean, it works if you have it in your hand, it works on your own monsters. Just this is something I use in a lot of my theme decks, and I wish I had 3 of them, to be completely honest, or at least 2. 2 would be cool. Now this guy, he's also pretty cool. Countergate. So when an opponent's monster declares an attack, a direct attack, negate the attack, and if you do, you draw 1 card. If that card's a monster, immediately after this effect resolves, you can normal summon it face-up attack position. So, dude attacks you, you play this, you draw a card, card's a monster, you can normal summon it. That's like super awesome. And that's during your opponent's turn, during your turn, or during his attack phase, I suppose. Wiretap, a card I was talking about earlier, it's a counter trap that negates the activation of a trap card. But it's shuffled into the deck rather than put into the graveyard. Face-up spell cards in your opponent's spell and trap card zone is sent to the graveyard. You can target one face-up monster on the field, destroy that target. So if a face-up spell or trap card in your opponent's spell or trap zone is sent to the graveyard, you can target a face-up monster and destroy that. So if he has any continuous spells or equipped spells and they go to the graveyard, you can destroy any card you want. Metalmorph, pretty a lot of people should know what this is. Gain 300 attack, and when you attack, you get half of your opponent's monster's attack onto your attack that you're attacking. Skull Dice decreases all your enemies' attack by, the dice roll times 100. Solomon's Wishes, every time you draw a card, you get 500 points of health. This one was pretty interesting. Select up to 2 face-up attack position monsters on the field. When any of the selected monsters are removed from the battlefield, destroy this card, and when this card is destroyed, destroy the selected monster. So if you have, Battle Ox, and dude has blue eyes, and you play this, you can link it to your Battle Ox and his blue eyes, and if your Battle Ox dies, his blue eyes dies. If he has a Karibo and a Dark Magician, you can play this on both of them, and if one of the 2 die, they both die. Or if this thing gets dispelled or trapped or whatever you call it, they both die. So that's kind of a sick card. I was thinking about finding a way to work that in a couple of my decks. This one, I ran this a couple of times. Intercept. If a tribute summon a monster with 1 tribute, you can take control of said monster. Like I said, attributing doesn't seem to happen as often, so this might be useless, but at the same time, it does have... I like it, so it's in here. Deal with it. If your opponent has 8 or more cards in the graveyard, the attack of all your opponent's monsters currently controlled becomes 0. So it's basically like a conditional Wabaku, I guess. Maybe not. I'm probably using that wrong. I probably didn't even say that right. You get it. This one's an interesting one as well. If a quick play spell is activated by your opponent, you can select one card on the field and destroy it. This is old school. I put it in here because, I mean, if you're doing something like the Goblin Attack Force or whatever it's called, where they have like 2200 attack and 0 defense, like this would really kind of take the cake on that one. Chain Destruction. It doesn't destroy the card that's on the field, but it destroys all copies of the card in the hand and deck. So if you can deal with the one on the field, you can take out all the ones in the hand and deck, and if it's like a key component to their strategy, you just completely, you know, screwed them over with one card. Well, I guess 2 cards, you have to deal with one on the field as well, but kind of cool. This is another one that's pretty old, I think. Banish one random card from your opponent's hand, face down, and your opponent's forced standby phase, it goes back to his hand. So it's kind of like a way to stall tactics for a particular card. I don't think I could ever see myself using this for any reason, but I can see it having its place. It could be a good way to just mess with your opponent. This guy here, your opponent draws a card. If it happens to be a spell or trap card, you can apply one of these effects. If it's a spell or trap card, you can have him discard all the cards he drew. So if he did like Pot of Greed or Graceful Charity, drew 3 cards, and the one that he drew was a spell or trap, they all go to the grave. Or if he has some sort of card that lets him draw 2 in his draw phase, or you can destroy one spell or trap card that they control. So that's... Once again, I ran this in a few decks, and it didn't take me long to replace it, but it does... I mean, it's interesting. If you can find a strategy around it, it's interesting. This one's in here because I figured if you're running a particular type of deck, and your opponent isn't, you can select 2 monster card attributes. Your opponent selects one of the attributes and destroy all the face-up monsters. So if let's say I'm running my fire deck, and somebody else is running like a fairy deck, and their fairy deck consists of earth, light, and dark, and you just consist of strictly fire, you can say, hey, you know what, I choose light and earth types, and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to pick the lesser of 2 evils, so they have like 1 earth type fairy, 1 dark type fairy, 1 light type fairy, you know, one of them is automatically going to die. So that's kind of a cool concept. And then you got Gust, which was my final, well, it wasn't my final pick, they all got kajubled, but the final one on the list, it's a common card, but it says you can activate this card when 1 or more of your spell cards are destroyed and sent from the field to the graveyard by a card effect your opponent controls. Destroy 1 spell or trap card on the field. So I mean, if you're playing like okay, they played Sakurutsu, or they played I don't know. They played this card, and then you played Remove Trap, and they're like, well, we're not going to do that, and they play like Mystical Space Typhoon, and then you're like, okay, well, then I'll play this, and then you destroy one of their cards. You have this huge chain, and it's basically just like it could have its place, is my point. I mean, like I said, none of these are the greatest, but hopefully you guys can go through these lists if you're newer players, and you could, instead of reading every single individual trap that you own, I'm telling you, like, this is probably a good, let's see, I probably opened probably about 500 packs of cards, give or take, probably, plus all the ones I get from Doles and stuff. So I have a pretty good selection of cards, and I mean, it's probably not a great selection of cards, but I have a pretty good selection of cards. So, I mean, if this is out of what I have, this is stuff that I would consider playable for like an average old school deck. Like if you're doing like like old school like structure kind of stuff, like the kind of stuff I'm more into than this here crazy synchro to an XYZ pendulum death summon with, you know, 4 trap card monsters that fuse together to you know, combat the powers of evil or some crap. And you just want to play a card with some good old-fashioned magic and trap cards and some monsters with some attack points instead of, you know, 20 long combos. I think all these cards kind of have a place. If you're a new player, all these cards would have a place. So check it out. Tell me what you think. Tell me if I missed anything. Tell me if you think I'm a schmuck. Because this is basically me pretending like I know what I'm talking about, and you know, we both know that's not true. But I kind of threw this together, and I thought, you know what, it's gonna help me. Maybe it's gonna help somebody else. You know. If I missed anything that you've seen as I'm building decks on camera, or as I'm scrolling through here, that you think is pretty universal and pretty useful, let me know. I'll throw it in the list, because I don't want to... This is, like I said, this is you help me, I help you kind of situation. Yeah, you know what I mean. So, thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you next time.